Andre Caldwell was 34 years old, sitting at his kitchen table coding the app his wife called a hobby for losers, when his laptop synced to a folder it had no business opening. Camille had always made her feelings clear. She mocked his salary, mocked his ambition, mocked the late nights he spent building something she was certain would never matter. He never argued back. He just kept building, quietly, in the dark, while she got ready for client dinners that ran later every week. That night, scrolling through backed-up messages by accident, Andre found her plans. An apartment lease, a move-in date, a man named Trevor Banks, already discussing furniture for a life Andre didn't know was ending. The next morning, he laid the messages on the table and asked her to explain. She didn't deny a single word. She just looked at him, calm and certain, and said the one word she'd apparently been waiting years to say out loud. Worthless. She had no idea that word would be the last mistake she ever made. A year later, Camille walked into a charity gala on Trevor's arm, chasing exactly the kind of room she'd always wanted. Across the floor stood a man in a tailored suit, a Cartier watch catching the light, a Victoria's Secret model laughing softly at his side. It took her several seconds to realize she was looking at Andre. She had no idea what he'd built in the time since she left him, and she had no idea it was about to find her. Before we jump into the story, comment where in the world you are watching from and subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you need to hear. The kitchen light buzzed low and yellow over Andre's head. It had buzzed like that for 3 weeks. He kept meaning to replace the bulb. His laptop sat open on the table, lines of code filling the screen in clean, even rows. A half-empty mug of coffee sat beside it, long gone cold. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the soft click of Camille's heels somewhere down the hall. This was his hour, 10 o'clock, sometimes 11. After dinner was done and the dishes were cleared, and Camille had moved on to whatever she moved on to, he'd open the laptop, pull up the app, and disappear into it. The app didn't have a name yet, not an official one. Andre called it the project in his head, and the thing out loud, because saying it like it mattered too much made it easier for people to take shots at it. His job paid the bills. He was a senior engineer at a mid-sized logistics company called Bridgepoint Solutions. Steady work, decent salary, the kind of position that made his mother proud, but didn't make anyone at a dinner party lean in closer. He wrote back-end infrastructure for freight routing software. It was important work, invisible work, the kind of work that kept other people's lives moving without anyone knowing his name. The app was different. It was his, a personal finance tool built for people who lived paycheck to paycheck. Not the polished, premium crowd, but regular people like his mother, like the neighbors he grew up around, who needed something simple and honest, and built for how they actually lived. He'd been chipping away at it for 2 years, evenings, weekends, lunch breaks eaten at his desk. Camille's heels clicked closer. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, looking sharp. A fitted black blazer over a silk blouse, hair done, lipstick fresh. Dressed like a magazine page at 10:15 on a Wednesday night. "You're going out?" Andre asked, not looking up from the screen. "I told you. Marcus wants to go over the Holt campaign before the Thursday presentation." She picked up her bag from the counter, checking inside it with quick, practiced movements. "He's only free tonight. You mentioned a meeting." "Not that it was at night." "Well, now you know." She snapped the bag shut. He looked up then. She was already checking her phone, thumb scrolling, face tilted away from him. "You could at least look at me when you talk to me," he said. She glanced up. There was no warmth in it. "I'm looking." He held her gaze for a second, then let it go. He turned back to his screen. She walked around the counter, stopped near his shoulder, and looked down at the laptop. He felt her eyes on the screen like a cold draft. "You're still on that thing," she said. "I'm always on it." She made a small sound, not a laugh. more like a breath that knew better. "Andre, baby." She said the word baby, the way someone sets a dish down they've decided to return. "When are you going to let that go?" "I'm not going to let it go. It's been 2 years. Most things worth building take longer than 2 years." She sighed, a long, deliberate one. "We could be doing so much more with your time, with our money. Do you know that Terry and David just put a down payment on that new development over in Riverside Heights? David's no smarter than you. He just actually—" She stopped herself. "He just actually what?" She smiled with her mouth only. "Nothing. I'll be back by midnight." She left without touching him. The front door opened and closed. Her car started in the driveway. Then quiet. Andre stared at the screen. He didn't type anything for a moment. His mother had been in the guest room since Friday night. Patricia Caldwell traveled light. One bag, her Bible, a tin of the hard peppermints she'd carried in her purse since he was 7 years old. She was 61 and moved a little slower these days, which she refused to discuss, but her eyes missed nothing. At dinner that evening, she'd watched the two of them from across the table with the careful stillness of a woman choosing not to say what she sees. When Camille had made a comment about the neighborhood, "It's fine, it's just not exactly where I pictured us," Patricia had taken a slow sip of water. When Camille had excused herself before dessert to take a call, holding the phone face down against her chest as she backed out of the room, Patricia had looked at Andre with steady, quiet eyes. Not pity. Something older than pity. He hadn't said anything either. It was past midnight when he finally started shutting things down. He plugged the laptop's charging cable into the wall outlet near the counter and, out of habit, hit sync on the backup utility. The program ran automatically sometimes across shared accounts. His, Camille's, the joint family cloud they'd set up 2 years back and mostly forgot about. A folder appeared that he didn't recognize. CMP phone backup. Auto restore. 10:14. He frowned at the screen. He clicked it. Inside were archived message threads. Dozens of them. He wasn't trying to snoop. He almost closed it. But then a name near the top caught his eye. Trevor Banks. He opened the thread. The first message loaded. Then another. Then a third. And a fourth. And his eyes moved slowly across the screen. "Did you talk to the landlord yet?" "Yes. He said we can take possession the first." "Perfect. Don't forget we need first, last, and deposit. I can cover the deposit if you handle the rest." "Already done, baby. I signed this morning." Andre did not move. The house was completely dark around him. The refrigerator hummed. The kitchen light buzzed low and yellow overhead. He sat very still with the phone in his hand. He read for 3 hours. He didn't rush. He didn't skim. He went through every message in that thread the way he approached a problem at work. Methodically, completely, making sure he understood exactly what he was looking at before he decided what to do with it. The thread between Camille and Trevor went back 14 months, not weeks, months. There were messages about the apartment, which floor, which unit, whether the building allowed dogs. There were messages about furniture, about splitting the cost of a new couch, about what to do with the dog Andre and Camille shared, a 4-year-old beagle named Biscuit, who was currently asleep at Andre's feet without knowing any of this. There were messages that were harder to read, the kind that weren't about logistics, the kind where she called Trevor baby and told him she was tired of pretending, where she said things like, "I don't know how much longer I can do this, and I've been done for a long time. I'm just waiting for the right moment." Where Trevor wrote back, "You deserve so much more than what he gives you." Andre read those too. All of them. Around 2 in the morning he got up, walked to the small printer on the desk in the hallway, and printed the ones that mattered most. The apartment lease discussion, the financial transfers she'd mentioned, the message where she told Trevor the date she planned to leave. He stacked the pages neatly, went to the kitchen, set them in the center of the table. Then he made a fresh pot of coffee, sat down, and waited. Camille came downstairs just before 8. She was still dressed from the night before. Her blazer was gone, blouse slightly wrinkled, heels swapped for flats she kept by the door. She looked like someone who hadn't slept much either. She stopped when she saw him sitting there. "You're up early," she said. "Sit down, Camille." Something in his voice made her still. She looked at him. Then she looked at the papers on the table. She crossed the kitchen slowly and picked up the top page. Her eyes moved across it. She set it back down. "Where did you get these?" "The cloud backup. The one we both have access to." She was quiet for a moment. He expected denial. He was ready for it, had already decided how he'd respond. But Camille didn't deny it. She pulled out the chair across from him and sat down. And then something shifted in her face. Not guilt, not remorse. Something that looked like relief. Like a woman who'd been holding something heavy for too long and had just decided to set it down, right on top of him. "Fine," she said. "You want to do this? Let's do this." "I'm not doing anything," Andre said. "I'm just letting you see what I know." "What you know?" She said the words back to him like they tasted sour. "Andre, you've been sitting at this table for 2 years, building something that has never once made a single dollar. 2 years. I've watched you pour everything into that project while we've stayed in this house, in this neighborhood, living like we're still 24 years old. Keep your voice down." "Why? Because your mother's here?" She glanced toward the hallway. She didn't lower her voice. Good. Maybe she should hear this. The house was very quiet. The kind of quiet that meant someone in the next room had stopped moving. Camille leaned forward. "I gave you every chance, Andre. Every single one. I asked you to apply for the director position at Mercer. I asked you to take the consulting offer Marcus's firm floated 2 years ago. Real money. Real opportunity. You said no to all of it because you were building something." She said the last 2 words with a small, flat smile. "And I kept waiting. I kept being patient. I kept telling myself, give him time. But there's only so long a woman can wait before she realizes she's been waiting on the wrong man." Andre looked at her without speaking. "Trevor sees me," she said. "He's not sitting around dreaming. He's actually doing something with his life. He's doing something with our joint account, too," Andre said. "I saw those messages." Her jaw tightened. She looked away for a moment, then back. "And what came next?" she said, slowly and clearly, the way a person speaks when they want every word to land exactly where they aim it. "The truth is, and I should have said it a long time ago, you are worthless, Andre. Not as an insult, as a fact. I've known it for years. I just kept trying to pretend otherwise." She stood up. She was already emotionally gone. Had been, apparently, for a long time. "I'm going to pack," she said. She took an hour. He spent that hour going to the closet, the dresser, the shelf in the bathroom where she kept her things, pulling down everything she'd missed, folding it, fitting it into 2 extra bags, without a word. When she came downstairs with her suitcase, he was standing at the door holding the rest. He held them out to her. "Be gone by morning," he said. Quiet. Even. She took the bags. She looked at him once, just for a second, like she was searching for something to confirm. He gave her nothing. She walked out. The door clicked shut behind her. Patricia came out of the guest room a few minutes later. She didn't say a word. She just walked into the kitchen and sat down across from the empty chair where Camille had been. Andre sat back down too. The printed pages were still on the table between them. The coffee had gone cold again. They sat there together in the kitchen, in the yellow buzz of the light Andre still hadn't replaced, and the word worthless sat in the room with them like something neither one of them wanted to be the first to touch. Patricia made the coffee fresh. She didn't ask Andre if he wanted any. She just got up, emptied the old pot, and started a new one. The sound of water running and the smell of grounds filling the kitchen were the most normal things that had happened in the last 12 hours, and Andre was grateful for both. He watched her move around the kitchen. She was 61, but she moved like someone younger when she had something to do with her hands. She set a mug in front of him and sat back down. "What are you going to do?" she asked. He wrapped both hands around the mug. Thought about it for a real second. Not the way people think when they're stalling, but the way he thought through problems at work, looking at what was actually there, not what he wished was there. "I'm going to finish the app," he said. "For real this time." Patricia looked at him. "I've been building it like I needed someone's permission to take it seriously," he said. "I'm done waiting for that." She nodded slowly. Not like she was surprised, more like she'd been waiting for him to say it out loud. He called Dwight Sullivan that afternoon. Dwight picked up on the second ring. "She's gone," Andre said. A pause. Then, "I know. You okay?" "Yeah. You sure? Call you back in 5 minutes." He went outside, stood on the back porch in the cold morning air with Biscuit sitting on his feet, and called back. "I want to build the company," Andre said. "Not the side project. The company. For real." There was a beat of silence. Then Dwight said, "Man, I've been waiting 2 years for you to say that." The year that followed was not glamorous. It was long nights and cheap takeout and arguments over product specs that lasted until 2 in the morning. It was Andre in the same chair where he used to build the app while Camille slept. Except now he wasn't hiding what he was doing from anyone. The divorce finalized 4 months in. Camille's lawyer pushed for a clean split. She wanted the condo equity, the car, and half the savings. Andre let her have all of it. She didn't ask for a stake in the app, didn't push for it at all. Her lawyer noted, on the record, that the side project had no current market valuation, no revenue, and no demonstrated path to profitability. She signed the papers without looking twice at that line. Andre signed them too. He kept his face neutral the entire time. 7 months after the divorce finalized, a seed investor named Calvin Marsh, a quiet, sharp man who had made a lot of money by betting early on things other people hadn't figured out yet, came in for $280,000. It wasn't life-changing money, but it was real. It meant payroll. It meant Andre and Dwight could stop pretending the nights weren't wearing them down. Dwight called it the moment they went from a project to a company. Andre called it the moment they stopped being able to quit. The acquisition offer came 11 months after the seed round. A fintech company called Meridian Capital reached out through an intermediary, low-key, the kind of first contact designed to feel like a conversation rather than an offer. Andre recognized the tactic immediately. He'd read enough deal breakdowns to know what it looked like when a larger company tried to feel out your price before you knew you had one. He didn't respond for 11 days. When he did, he came back with a number. Not aggressive, not modest. Exactly what the product was worth, priced the way someone confident says a price, without explaining it or apologizing for it. They countered. He came down slightly. They countered again. He didn't. The deal closed on a Tuesday morning, just after 9. Andre and Dwight shook hands in a glass-walled conference room on the 14th floor of a building they'd parked in a garage beneath. Andre remembered looking out the window at the skyline and feeling something quiet and complete settle in his chest. That night he called Patricia and told her. The next morning, he wired the full balance of her medical bills directly from his personal account. $44,000 that had been sitting over her like a cloud for almost 2 years. The kind of debt that doesn't crush you all at once, but just quietly makes everything harder. Camille had always called it throwing money away on a woman who should have planned better. Andre called it the first thing he did with his own money. Patricia cried. He let her. He met Naomi Lake at a product launch event 3 weeks after the deal closed. She was there for a brand partnership, not the tech. He was there because Dwight made him go. They ended up talking for an hour near the back of the room, away from the noise, and she said something that made him laugh for the first time in a long time. A real laugh. The kind that caught him off guard. They had dinner the following weekend. Then the weekend after that. By the time the year mark came around, she was beside him in the back of a car heading toward the Meridian Charity Gala, wearing a deep burgundy dress, her hand resting lightly on his arm. He wore a black tuxedo. New watch. Easy posture. The ballroom was exactly the kind of room Camille had always wanted access to. Tall ceilings, soft gold light, the kind of crowd that didn't need to announce itself. Andre stepped inside, and the room received him the way rooms receive people who belong in them. He was halfway to the bar when he felt it. Not a sound, not a movement, just the particular weight of someone's attention landing on him from across the room. He turned. Camille was standing near the far wall, a champagne glass in her hand. Trevor beside her. She was dressed for exactly this kind of room. She had been working toward exactly this kind of room. She was staring at him. Her face had gone completely still. Camille moved through the crowd the way she always moved through rooms she wanted to own. Carefully, with a smile already set on her face before she got close enough to need it. Andre saw her coming. He didn't move. Andre. She said his name like they'd bumped into each other at a grocery store. Light. Easy. Like the word worthless had never lived in her mouth. I didn't know you'd be here tonight. Camille, he said. That was it. One word. He let the space after it sit. She looked at Naomi, and something shifted behind her eyes. Quick, like a camera adjusting to a bright light. Hi, Camille said, extending her hand. I'm Camille. Andre and I go way back. Naomi shook it. Naomi, nice to meet you. Her voice was warm but easy, the kind of warm that didn't reach for anything. She had no reason to be anything but polite. So she was. Camille smiled wider. She was good at smiling. She turned back to Andre, and her eyes moved. Fast. Practiced. The way a person looks at a room when they're pretending to be relaxed, but actually taking inventory. His tuxedo. The watch on his left wrist. A Cartier Santos with a steel bracelet that caught the gold light cleanly. The way 3 separate people had nodded at him on the walk from the entrance to the bar. The way the room didn't ignore him. She had been in this room 30 minutes before he arrived. Nobody had nodded at her yet. You look well, she said. The words came out smooth, but her jaw was doing something tight underneath them. I am, Andre said. Trevor appeared at her shoulder, hand on the small of her back, his smile the practiced kind that came with having a lot of business cards. He introduced himself to Naomi. Andre nodded at him once and turned his attention back to a passing board member who stopped to shake his hand. Camille watched that handshake. Her champagne glass didn't move. In the car home, Naomi waited until they were through the first intersection before she spoke. Old girlfriend? She asked. Ex-wife. She looked at him. Not surprised exactly. More like something she'd half suspected had just been confirmed. You want to tell me about it? She said. He glanced over at her. The city moved past the windows behind her, lit up and indifferent. Yeah, he said. I do. He told her most of it that night, sitting at her kitchen counter with the lights low and 2 glasses of water between them because neither of them wanted anything stronger. He told her about the messages he'd found, about the confrontation, about what Camille had said before she walked out the door. He didn't dress it up. He didn't perform the pain. He just told it like it happened. Naomi listened the way she always listened, completely, without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. The word she used, Naomi said. Yeah. She said it like she meant it. She did, he said. That's what I've never been able to shake. Not that she cheated. Not even that she left. It was that she'd already decided what I was, a long time before she said it out loud. She'd been living with that conclusion the whole time. Naomi looked at him steadily. And that's not something you can just let sit. No, he said. It's not. 3 days later, he called Felicia Grant. He found her through a referral from his business attorney. Not a divorce lawyer, a contracts man who knew deals and knew people. When Andre explained what he needed, his attorney didn't ask many questions. He just said, "If you want someone thorough, call Felicia." Andre called her the next morning. Her office was clean and quiet, on the 6th floor of a building downtown, the kind of office that didn't try to impress anyone. Framed credentials on one wall, a single plant in the corner that was actually alive, bookshelves with actual books, organized by subject, not for show. Felicia herself was somewhere in her mid-40s, precise in the way a person gets precise when they've spent 20 years working with numbers that don't lie. She wore reading glasses on a thin chain, and she spoke in complete sentences, every one of them accurate. Andre told her he needed a post-mortem on the divorce paperwork. A new business deal was coming, he explained, and he wanted to make sure there was nothing buried in the old settlement that could create liability. It was true enough. It was also not the whole reason. Felicia said she understood, and began pulling records the same week. She called him back in 8 days. He sat across from her desk, jacket on, hands folded on the table. She turned a printed spreadsheet toward him. 2 columns, deposits and withdrawals, from a joint savings account he hadn't touched since the separation, because he'd believed, because she had led him to believe, that it had sat untouched throughout. "This account," Felicia said, tapping the header with one finger, "shows a pattern of withdrawals beginning approximately 14 months before your divorce filing. Incremental amounts, structured to stay below automatic flagging thresholds." She paused. "The total removed does not match what was declared in the settlement." Andre looked at the numbers. Then he looked up at her. "How much?" he said. Felicia set another page beside the first. "Clean, exact, damning. $63,000, she said. "Gone before you ever knew to look." Andre didn't move from his chair right away. He looked at the spreadsheet. $63,000. Gone in small pieces, month by month, like water draining through a crack in the floor. Slow enough that nobody notices, fast enough that by the time you look, it's already over. "I need to know where it went," he said. Felicia nodded. She'd already expected the question. "I'll follow the transfers," she said. "Give me a few days." She called him back on a Thursday. He came in without a coffee this time. He sat down, and she turned her monitor slightly so he could see it from across the desk. On screen was a web of transactions, wire transfers, business deposits, routing numbers traced to a single destination. "The money moved through 2 intermediary accounts before landing here," Felicia said. She pointed to a name on the screen. A business name. TB Creative Group, LLC. Andre looked at it. "Trevor's agency," he said. "Yes," Felicia said. "The agency was undercapitalized, significantly, for at least 18 months before your divorce. The deposits from your joint account arrived in irregular intervals, always just large enough to cover payroll gaps or vendor invoices. From the outside, it would look like a private investor. Nothing formal. No paperwork. Just money moving. Just money moving," she confirmed. "No contract. No equity agreement. No documentation of any kind." She folded her hands on the desk, which means she wasn't investing. She was propping him up, with your money, while living in your house. The room was very quiet. Andre looked at the screen for a long moment without speaking. He was doing the thing he always did, filing it away, placing it carefully, not letting it spill. His jaw was tight, but his hands were still. "How long was the affair running?" he said. Felicia reached for a folder on the left side of her desk and opened it. Inside were printed records, date-stamped emails and message logs recovered from the cloud backup. "The earliest communication I can confirm," she said, sliding the top page toward him, "is dated 26 months before your divorce filing." 26 months. Andre did the math without meaning to. He and Camille had been married 4 years. That meant the affair had been running for more than half the marriage. He'd spent the last 2 years of his life building a home with someone who had already built a different future in secret, and every dinner and quiet evening and ordinary Sunday had been a performance she'd put on because it was convenient. He picked up the page. He read the date at the top. He set it back down. "All right," he said. That was all. He told Patricia that Saturday. She was at his kitchen table when he sat down across from her, and he told her the way he told her most hard things, without softening it so much that the shape of it disappeared. He told her about the account, about Trevor's agency, about the timeline. Patricia listened with her hands wrapped around her coffee mug, both hands, the way she held it when she was steadying herself. When he told her about the 2-year timeline, she closed her eyes for just a second. Then she said, "Andre." Her voice had something in it he hadn't heard in a long time. Not anger. Something smaller and worse than anger. "She asked me for money," Patricia said. "About 8 months before she left. Said her car needed a transmission. Said it was urgent. And she was embarrassed to ask. But she didn't want to worry you while you were working so much." She paused. "I gave her $1,100. Andre went still. Mama. I had it saved. I told her not to worry about paying it back." Patricia set her mug down and looked at the table. "There was never a car repair, was there?" "No," he said quietly. "There wasn't." She didn't cry right away. She sat with it for a moment first, the way a person does when they're trying to decide if they have the strength to feel the full weight of something. Then her face changed, and her eyes filled, and she pressed one hand flat against the table like she needed to feel something solid. Andre moved his chair closer. He didn't say anything. He just put his hand over hers and left it there. She had taken that woman into her home, cooked for her, accepted her as family, and Camille had looked her in the face, invented a story about a broken-down car, and walked out with money meant for Patricia's own security. Money that went straight into the same account, feeding the man she'd been seeing behind her son's back for 2 years. They sat together in the kitchen until Patricia's breathing steadied. The first text from Camille came that same week. "Hey, I think I still have a few of your books in storage. Want me to drop them off?" 2 days later, another one. "Random question. Did you end up keeping Biscuit?" Just thinking about him. Andre read both messages. He didn't respond to either one. He set his phone face down on the counter and went back to work. The event was at a rooftop bar in Midtown. A mutual acquaintance, a PR consultant named Dana, who had known both of them during the marriage, was celebrating her agency's 10-year anniversary. Andre had almost skipped it. He went because Dwight was going, and because hiding from rooms wasn't something he did. He was standing near the edge of the rooftop, drink in hand, city spread out below him, when Camille appeared at his side. She didn't approach from the front. She came from the left, materializing out of the crowd the way people do when they've been watching you for a while and timing their entrance. "Andre." She said his name like it was something warm she'd been keeping in her pocket. He turned, looked at her, said nothing for a beat. "Camille." She looked good. She'd always known how to look good at events. That was one thing about her that was never in question. Her dress was fitted and dark, her hair down, her jewelry tasteful. She was performing, and the performance was polished. "I wasn't sure if you saw me earlier," she said. A small laugh, nervous seeming. "I saw you," he said. The small laugh faded. She shifted her weight slightly, recalibrated. Then her expression softened into something that was probably supposed to look like vulnerability. Her eyes went glassy at the edges. "I've been wanting to talk to you," she said. "For a while, actually. I just didn't know how to reach out without it being—" She paused, pressed her lips together. "I don't know. Weird. You texted me twice last week," Andre said. "I know," she exhaled. "That was me being a coward, using the dog as an excuse." She looked down at her glass, then back up at him. "I owe you more than a text about Biscuit." Andre waited. He kept his face even, his posture relaxed. He looked like a man who had nowhere urgent to be. I was going through something, Camille said. Her voice dipped. When I left, I know that's not enough. I know it doesn't explain everything, but I wasn't in a good place, and I made decisions that She stopped. Her jaw tightened the way it did when she was trying to make emotion look spontaneous. I just want you to know I'm sorry. Okay, Andre said. She blinked. She had expected more than that. He could see her recalculating. That's it? She said, with a small, uncertain smile, like they were sharing something. What else would you like me to say? She laughed softly, shook her head. You haven't changed. I've changed quite a bit, he said. You just mean I'm still calm. That landed. Her smile held, but something behind it shifted. She turned to look out at the city, standing beside him now like they were old friends catching up. I heard about the acquisition, she said, keeping her voice light. Everyone heard about it. Andre, that's incredible. Seriously, a pause. The fintech space has been wild. Did you retain any equity going in? Or was it a full buyout? There it was. It was a good deal, he said. I'm sure. She nodded, still looking at the skyline. And are you still running the technical side of things or more of an advisory role now? Whatever the role needs, he said. She glanced at him sideways. You're not going to tell me anything, are you? I'm telling you plenty, he said. You're just not hearing what you came over for. A beat. Her chin lifted slightly. Then she smiled again, softer this time, more careful. And Naomi? She's lovely. Is that serious? Or, yes, he said. Simple. Final. Camille looked back at her glass. Good, she said. Good for you. The words were right, but the delivery was mechanical, like she was reading off a card she didn't fully believe in. They stood in silence for a moment. Then she said she'd let him get back to his night, touched his arm briefly, and moved back into the crowd. Andre watched her go. Then he finished his drink. He called Felicia on Monday. He relayed the conversation from start to finish. The timing of Camille's approach, the emotional setup, the pivot to equity structure and relationship status. He wasn't editorializing. He gave her the facts. Felicia listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for exactly 2 seconds. That tracks, she said, because I found something you need to see. She sent the document that afternoon. Andre opened it at his desk. It was a legal memo, dated 14 months ago, 4 months before Camille had left the marriage. It was addressed to Camille from a family law attorney. The subject line read, Marital interest in future business assets. He read it slowly. The memo laid out a clear legal argument. If Andre's side project ever generated significant value after a divorce, and if Camille's attorney could demonstrate that the project was developed during the marriage, using marital time, marital resources, or income, she might have grounds to revisit the settlement and file a claim for a portion of that value. The attorney had advised her to exit the marriage quickly and cleanly. A rapid, uncontested filing would preserve her options. Delaying, or appearing to have contributed to the marriage's deterioration, could weaken her position later. Andre sat back in his chair. She hadn't left because she was unhappy. She had left when she did, the way she did, because someone had told her it was the right legal move, and now that the app had sold, she was circling back. Not out of regret, not out of grief. She was circling back because the next phase of the same plan had begun. Andre didn't sleep much that night. He sat at his desk for a long time after closing Felicia's document. The city quiet outside his window. The legal memo still open on his screen. He read it twice more. Not because he needed to, because he wanted to make sure the thing he was feeling was accurate. It was. She had planned this. Not in the heat of the moment, not in a burst of emotion, not even out of love for Trevor. She had sat across from a lawyer 14 months ago before she ever packed a bag, and asked how to leave in a way that kept her options open. He closed the laptop. He went to bed. And in the morning, he made 2 calls. Felicia's office was on the 14th floor of a building on Park Avenue. Glass walls, clean lines, a conference table long enough to seat 12. Andre sat on one side, Dwight on the other, both of them facing Felicia at the head of the table. She had a stack of folders in front of her and a legal pad with notes written in small, tight handwriting. "Before we talk strategy," she said, "I want to make sure you understand the legal position. The misappropriated funds from the joint account are recoverable. The memo gives us grounds to argue fraudulent concealment during settlement proceedings. Trevor's agency received demonstrable transfers from marital assets. The affair timeline corroborates a pattern of deception that undermines the original filing." She tapped the top folder. "This is a strong civil case." "I know," Andre said. "I'm not skipping the legal piece." "But you want more than paperwork," Felicia said. She said it without judgment. "I want accountability," he said. "Real accountability. The kind that happens in a room, in front of people, where she can't spin it or bury it, or wait for it to go away quietly." Dwight leaned forward. "He wants her to feel it land." "That's correct," Andre said. Felicia looked at him steadily. "The gala." "The gala," he said. The event was already scheduled. It had been in planning for 6 weeks, a formal evening to publicly launch the Patricia Caldwell Foundation. Andre had set aside a portion of the acquisition proceeds specifically for it, and Felicia had already been coordinating the legal structure for the charitable entity. It was real. It had always been real. What changed now was the guest list. Andre slid a piece of paper across the table. 2 names, handwritten. Felicia looked at it. "Sandra Price," she said. "Camille's mother." She looked up. "Does she know how the marriage ended?" "She knows Camille left," Andre said. "She doesn't know about the money. She doesn't know about the legal memo. Camille told her they grew apart." Felicia nodded slowly. "And the second name?" "Marcus Webb," Andre said. "Trevor's biggest client. He runs a mid-size real estate investment group." "Felicia, you mentioned his firm has been doing business with Trevor's agency for almost 3 years. "That's right. He's the agency's primary revenue source. If that account walks, the agency has no floor." "Marcus doesn't know where Trevor's operating capital has been coming from," Andre said. Felicia looked at the paper again. "We invite him as a foundation board guest. He has no prior connection to the conflict." "None that he knows of yet," Dwight said. The room was quiet for a moment. "I want it done right," Andre said. "No theatrics. No ambush that looks like an ambush. The foundation announcement is the main event. That's what the evening is. Everything else is just the truth being present in the room." Felicia picked up her pen. "I'll have the full documentation packet ready before the gala. The fund transfers, the affair timeline, the legal memo. All of it sourced, all of it clean." She paused. "And Camille's invitation?" "Send it," Andre said. "Frame it as a goodwill gesture. She'll see it as an opening." Dwight smiled at that, just slightly. "She'll walk right in," he said. She did. The invitation arrived in Camille's email 4 days later, formal and understated, bearing the name of Andre's company and a brief description of the foundation launch gala. It was addressed to her personally. There was no note from Andre, no message attached, just the invitation. She read it 3 times. Then she called Trevor and told him they had been invited to Andre's gala. Trevor, who had spent the last 2 months watching the acquisition news with barely concealed anxiety, said very little. He just asked what she was going to wear. She took that as a yes. The night of the gala, the venue glowed. It was a ballroom on the east side, high ceilings and warm light, round tables draped in white linen, the room already filling with guests in formal dress. A small stage at the front. A banner above it, deep blue with gold lettering, that read, "The Patricia Caldwell Foundation, Building Forward." Andre stood near the entrance in a fitted black tuxedo, Naomi beside him in a deep burgundy gown. He was talking to someone from the foundation board, nodding, unhurried. Patricia sat at the table of honor near the stage, healthy and bright-eyed, in a dress she had picked herself. Dwight stood near the bar with a glass of water, watching the door. Felicia was already seated. Her folder closed on the table in front of her. The room filled. A string quartet played softly near the windows, and then the doors opened again. Camille walked in, Trevor at her side. A moment later, Sandra Price, Camille's mother, entered from the same entrance, escorted by a foundation volunteer. She spotted Andre and raised a hand in a warm wave, smiling, genuinely glad to be there. Across the room, Marcus Webb was seated at a table near the stage, reading the foundation program, completely at ease. None of them knew what the others meant to the room. The string quartet had gone quiet. A soft chime from the stage drew the room's attention, and the conversations folded down one by one until the ballroom was still. Andre stepped up to the podium, adjusted the microphone, and looked out at the room without hurry. He didn't look nervous. He looked like a man who had been waiting a long time to say something true. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he said. His voice was calm and clear. "A little over a year ago, I was sitting at a kitchen table in a house I could barely afford, working on something most people told me would never matter. Tonight, that something fun's what you're about to hear about." Light applause moved through the room. "This foundation exists because of one person." He turned toward the table of honor, where Patricia sat, with her hands folded in her lap and her eyes already wet. "My mother, Patricia Caldwell. She raised me on the belief that what you build is the only real answer to what anyone says about you. She never asked for recognition. She just kept showing up. This foundation is named for her, and every dollar it distributes will carry that same principle." The applause was fuller now, genuine. Patricia pressed her fingertips to her mouth. Sandra Price, seated near the back, clapped warmly. She had always liked Andre. She had just never understood why her daughter hadn't. Camille sat very still. Trevor touched her arm once. She didn't move. Andre waited for the room to settle. Then he said, "Before I close, I want to acknowledge someone whose work made a portion of this foundation's initial funding possible in a way I didn't anticipate." He paused. Felicia Grant, our legal and financial counsel, was brought on last year to review some paperwork from my previous marriage. In the course of that review, she uncovered significant financial irregularities, funds that had been misappropriated from marital assets without my knowledge. The room stayed quiet. A different kind of quiet. Those funds have since been recovered through civil proceedings, and because I believe money taken dishonestly should do something honest with itself. A small pause, deliberate, unhurried. They've been redirected in full into this foundation. He said it simply. No raised voice. No dramatic turn. He didn't look at Camille. He didn't need to. Felicia sat with her hands flat on the table, expression neutral. Marcus Webb, 2 tables away, had set down his program. He was listening carefully now, the easy smile gone from his face, something quieter working behind his eyes. Sandra Price had stopped clapping. She was looking at her daughter. Camille's face had gone the color of cold ash. Trevor's jaw was tight. He stared at the tablecloth like it owed him an explanation. The applause that followed Andre's remarks was warm and full, the room responding to the surface of what he'd said, without knowing all of what sat beneath it. But the people who needed to understand had understood. Andre stepped down from the stage. He found Camille near the far hallway, heading toward the coat room. Moving fast. He said her name once, quietly, and she stopped. They ended up in a small corridor off the main hall. No phones out. No one nearby. Just the muffled sound of the gala resuming behind them, and the hum of the building's ventilation. Camille opened her mouth first. "Andre, that was..." "I'm not asking for a response," he said. "I'm going to tell you what we found, and you're going to listen." She closed her mouth. He told her plainly. The joint savings account, drained by just over $60,000 across 14 months while they were still married. The wire transfers to Trevor's agency. The dates on those transfers, which matched the dates on receipts for agency equipment and payroll. His mother's money, the cash Patricia had handed over for car repairs that never happened, folded into the same account. And then the affair timeline. 2 years and 4 months. Not the handful of weeks Camille had let him believe. More than half of their marriage, running parallel to it like a shadow. Camille's expression moved through several things. Denial, then calculation, then something that might have been shame, but landed more like damage control. "The legal memo your attorney drafted 14 months ago," he continued. "The marital interest claim. You left clean because you thought I'd fail. And if I failed, you stayed gone. And if I didn't," he let the silence hold that for a moment, "you had paperwork ready." Her chin lifted slightly. "That's not—" "Camille," his voice didn't rise. "I'm not asking you to explain it. I already understand it." He looked at her directly, the way he had the morning he set those printed messages on the kitchen table. The same steadiness, not anger. Something colder and more permanent than anger. "You told me I was worthless," he said. "You said it like a verdict, like you'd already decided and you just needed me to hear it." He paused. "The only thing that turned out to be worthless was your bet that I'd prove you right." Camille said nothing. There was nothing left to say that wouldn't make it worse, and she knew it. After a moment, André turned and walked back toward the ballroom. She didn't stay. By the time André returned to his table, Naomi was there, speaking quietly with Dwight, a glass of wine in her hand. She looked up when he sat down. She didn't ask anything right away. She just reached over and rested her hand on his arm. He covered it with his own. The story didn't need André to tell it. It told itself. By the Monday after the gala, Marcus Webb had already made 2 phone calls. He was a careful man. He didn't act on rumors. But what he'd heard from the stage that night wasn't a rumor. It was a statement delivered by a man's attorney in a room full of witnesses, tied to a civil recovery lawsuit with a case number he could look up himself. He looked it up. By Tuesday afternoon, Webb Consulting had sent formal notice to Trevor's agency. 30 days to wind down the contract. The letter was polite, professional, and final. Trevor called Camille from his car that same afternoon. She knew from the first word that he wasn't calling to talk things through. "Marcus pulled the account," he said. His voice was flat. No warmth in it at all. 30 days. "Trevor, don't." The word came out like he'd been holding it for a long time. "You told me that money was a personal investment. Your money. You never said a word about where it actually came from. It was complicated. The marriage was already over. Camille." His voice went cold. "Marcus Webb was 60% of my revenue. 60%. And now every other person in that room is going to ask questions I don't have good answers to." He paused. "I'm not going down with this. That's not happening." "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying I'm done." A short silence. "Don't call me." He hung up. Camille sat in her car in a parking garage for a long time after that, her phone face down on the passenger seat, the engine running for no reason. The agency lasted 3 more weeks after Webb pulled out. Without that anchor account, the smaller clients followed, not all at once, but steadily, the way water finds every crack. Trevor tried to hold things together with calls and meetings and promises he no longer had the capital to back up. It didn't work. By the end of the month, the office lease was surrendered and the agency's social media pages went dark. Trevor blamed Camille in conversations she wasn't part of, in rooms she'd never be invited back into. He told people she had run a side channel through his business without his knowledge. He said he was as much a victim as anyone. Some people believed him. Most people didn't care enough to decide either way. They just made a note of his name and moved on. He was done being someone's story, so he left the city entirely. Sandra Price drove to Camille's apartment on a Wednesday evening. She didn't call ahead. She sat across from her daughter at the kitchen table with her hands in her lap and listened while Camille tried to explain. The car repairs that weren't real. The money Sandra had handed over quietly, without question. Because that's what mothers did. Sandra was not a loud woman. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. Not in front of Camille. She just asked one question when her daughter finished talking. "Did you think I would never find out?" Camille didn't have an answer for that. Sandra picked up her keys and left. She didn't slam the door. She closed it carefully, the way you close something you're not sure you'll open again. She sent Andre a short message the following day. It said, "I'm sorry for all of it. You deserved better from our family." Andre read it once, replied with a single line thanking her, and didn't bring it up again. The civil suit moved through the court system without resistance. Camille had retained a lawyer briefly, a younger one, less experienced, the only one she could afford by then. He reviewed Felicia's documentation, reviewed the bank records, reviewed the wire transfer logs, and the dated communications and the original divorce filing, and told Camille honestly that there was no viable defense. The paper trail was exact. The amounts were exact. The timeline was exact. She let the suit proceed uncontested. There was no dramatic moment in a courtroom, no final confrontation, no opportunity for a speech. The judgment was entered on a Tuesday morning in a room Camille wasn't present for, processed by a clerk who had no idea what any of it meant to the people involved. Felicia called Andre that afternoon. He was at his desk, the late light coming in flat and gold through the office window, a half-empty coffee mug sitting near his keyboard. "Judgment's been entered and confirmed," Felicia said. Her voice was the same as it always was, precise, unhurried, free of editorial comment. "The full recovered amount has been formally transferred to the Patricia Caldwell Foundation's operating account. Everything's clean. The matter is closed." Andre was quiet for a moment. "Thank you, Felicia," he said, "for all of it." "That's what you hired me to do," she said simply. After she hung up, Andre set the phone down on his desk. He looked out the window at the street below, at people moving through the late afternoon like the day was ordinary, like nothing particular had happened at all. He picked up his coffee, took a sip. It had gone cold, but he drank it anyway. 6 months is a long time when you're building something. It is almost nothing when you're watching your mother light up a room. The Patricia Caldwell Foundation's first community health fair was held on a Saturday in late October, at a rented event space 2 miles from the neighborhood where Andre grew up. The ceiling was high and clean. Round tables covered in white linen filled the floor. Local health clinics had booths along the walls. Free screenings, free consultations, free referrals for families who couldn't afford what they needed on their own. Patricia had shown up 2 hours early to help arrange the centerpieces. Andre found her near the entrance when he and Naomi arrived, directing a young volunteer with the kind of calm authority that made it look like she'd been doing this for years. Her hair was pinned back neatly. She was wearing a deep blue dress she'd bought specifically for the occasion, and told Andre 3 times she didn't need him to pay for. He'd paid for it anyway. "You're late," she said when she saw him, though he was 20 minutes early. "You were just early," he said. She hugged him, then looked past him at Naomi and pointed one finger. "You, come here." Naomi smiled and walked into the hug without hesitation. She was wearing a simple dark jacket, her hair pulled back, no effort made to be anything other than what she was, which was, Andre had come to understand, exactly who she always was. Naomi didn't put on different versions of herself for different rooms. She walked in as herself and let the room adjust. Patricia held her by the shoulders and looked at her directly. "Thank you for coming. I wouldn't have missed it," Naomi said. She meant it. Andre knew she meant it because he knew by now how Naomi spoke when she didn't mean something. There was a small, almost invisible flatness to her voice when she was being polite for politeness' sake. This wasn't that. She'd heard the full story 3 months ago. They'd been sitting on the couch in his apartment, a quiet Sunday evening, the television off, when she asked him directly. She didn't pry and she didn't push. She just asked if he was ready to tell her everything, and he said yes, and he did. All of it. The messages in the cloud folder, the kitchen table, the word Camille used, Patricia's loan money gone into a failing agency, the marital interest claim drafted before Camille had even finished walking out the door. Naomi listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "She thought patience was the same thing as having nothing inside you." Andre looked at her. "People do that," Naomi said. "They see someone who doesn't react, and they decide there's nothing there. It says everything about them and nothing about you." He didn't have much to add to that. He wasn't sure anything needed adding. The event filled up steadily through the morning. Families moved between booths. Children sat in folding chairs getting their blood pressure checked by nurses, who talked to them like people. An older man in a gray cardigan shook Andre's hand and told him his wife had gotten a referral through the foundation 3 weeks ago that led to a diagnosis she'd been waiting 18 months to get. Andre thanked him, shook his hand back, meant it completely. Dwight arrived around 11, coffee in hand, foundation t-shirt already wrinkled like he'd put it on in the car. He stood beside Andre for a few minutes watching the room, the way they used to stand in the office watching a build go live, quietly, without needing to narrate it. "Your mom talked to 6 different families in the last hour?" Dwight said. "She was born for this," Andre said. "She really was." Sometime after noon, Andre stepped outside for 10 minutes. Not because anything was wrong, just to breathe. He sat on a low concrete step near the side entrance, jacket over his knees, and scrolled through his phone out of habit. A business news alert near the bottom of his feed caught his eye. Just a headline, 3 lines, the collapse of a small marketing consultancy, and the financial judgment tied to it. Camille's name was in the second line. He read it once. He did not read it again. He sat with it for a moment the way you sit with a closed chapter. Not with satisfaction exactly, not with grief, just with the specific quiet of something that is simply over. There was no pull toward anything further, no urge to forward it, or save it, or show anyone. The feeling in his chest was not triumph. It wasn't relief either, not quite. It was closer to stillness. He thought briefly about the word she had used, the way she'd delivered it, flat, deliberate, like a door closing. He understood now that it had never really been about him. A word like that, said that way, is never really about the person it's aimed at. It is about the person who needs to say it to make their exit feel justified. She'd needed a verdict to leave with. He'd built one to leave behind. He put his phone in his pocket and stood up. Inside, through the glass door, he could see Patricia standing at the far end of the room, greeting a young mother holding a sleeping infant, her hand warm on the woman's shoulder, her face open and steady and full of purpose. Andre pushed the door open and walked back in. I hope you enjoyed that one. Be sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. I've picked out 2 more for you that I think you'll really like.